The morning coffee was still warm in Tom Blake's cup when the first explosions lit up the sky above New Geneva. He had been reviewing quantum field equations in the research facility's basement laboratory. The same boring calculations he'd been working on for 3 years. The coffee cup shattered against the concrete floor as the building shook, and suddenly those equations didn't seem so boring anymore. Emergency sirens wailed across the colony as Tom stumbled toward the nearest communication terminal. The screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Roth's weathered face from the Planetary Defense Command Center. Behind the Admiral, officers ran back and forth between smoking consoles while red warning lights bathed everything in an ominous glow. All civilian personnel are to evacuate immediately, Roth's voice crackled through the static. The Dominion fleet has arrived in force. This is not a drill. Tom's hands trembled as he switched to the external camera feeds. Massive crimson ships hung in the atmosphere like deadly storm clouds, their hulls bristling with weapons that could crack continents. He had seen the reports from other human colonies, had watched the recorded transmissions of entire worlds being reduced to ash and glass. Now it was New Geneva's turn. The quantum facility's head scientist, Dr. Mills, burst through the laboratory door with wild eyes and disheveled hair. Tom, thank God you're here. We need to activate the emergency protocols. The quantum storage network, everything we've built, all of humanity's collected knowledge needs to be transmitted before they destroy the facility. Another explosion shook the building, this one much closer. Dust rained from the ceiling as the lights flickered. Tom could hear the distant sound of fighter jets screaming overhead, followed by the terrible silence that meant they had been shot. Down the evacuation ships? Tom asked, hoping against hope. Dr. Mills shook his head grimly. Destroyed on the launch pads. The underground bunkers are being targeted by precision strikes. They know exactly where everything is located. We're not just losing this battle, Tom. We're losing the war. The two men hurried through the facility's corridors, past laboratories filled with experimental equipment that represented decades of human scientific advancement. None of it would matter in a few hours. The Dominion had spent 3 years systematically hunting down every human settlement in the galaxy, and they had never failed to complete their work. In the main quantum chamber, banks of computers hummed with barely contained energy. The experimental quantum field generators that Tom had helped design stood like metallic monoliths, their surfaces covered in equations that pushed the boundaries of known physics. This facility was supposed to be humanity's next great leap forward, a way to store and transmit information across vast distances instantaneously. Instead, it would become their tombstone. How long do we have? Tom asked as he began inputting activation codes. Dr. Mills consulted his tablet, which was receiving real-time updates from the defense network. The orbital bombardment will begin in 18 minutes. The facility's shields might buy us an extra 10 minutes after that, but no more. Tom's fingers flew across the control interfaces, bringing the quantum storage network online. Across the galaxy, hidden nodes that had been placed on dozens of worlds began receiving the transmission. Every piece of human art, literature, scientific knowledge, and cultural heritage was being compressed into quantum data packets and scattered to the stars. The building shook again, more violently this time. Through the reinforced windows, Tom could see pillars of fire rising from the city. The Dominion wasn't just destroying military targets anymore. They were sterilizing the entire planet. There, Dr. Mills said, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. The transmission is complete. Whatever happens to us, at least some record of what we were will survive? Tom stared at the quantum field generators, an impossible idea forming in his mind. Doctor, what would happen if someone was inside the quantum field when the facility was destroyed? Not just near it, but actually inside the field matrix itself. Dr. Mills looked at him with growing alarm. Tom, no, the field would tear apart your molecular structure. Even if by some miracle you survived, you'd be phased partially out of normal space-time. The effects would be completely unpredictable. But I would survive? Possibly, but at what cost? You'd be neither fully alive nor fully dead, existing. In a state of quantum flux that we don't even understand? The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, casting everything in a hellish red glow. Tom could hear Admiral Roth's final transmission echoing through the facility speakers. "This is Admiral Roth reporting total system failure. All defensive positions have been overrun. The planet is lost. May God help us all." Dr. Mills grabbed Tom's shoulder. "We need to get to the emergency shelter. There's still a chance we can survive in the deep bunkers." Tom shook his head, already moving toward the quantum field generator's control chamber. "They're targeting the bunkers specifically. You said so yourself. There is no shelter from this." The older scientist followed him, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Tom, even if this works, even if you somehow survive, you'll be alone. The last human being in the universe." Tom sealed himself inside the quantum field chamber, his hands working quickly to adjust the field parameters. Through the thick glass he could see Dr. Mills watching him with a mixture of admiration and horror. "Maybe, but maybe that will be enough." The first orbital bombardment beam struck the facility's upper levels. The entire structure groaned as tons of concrete and steel were vaporized in an instant. Tom activated the quantum field generators just as the second beam punched through the building's defenses. Reality twisted around him as the quantum field enveloped his body. He felt himself being pulled in dozens of different directions at once. His consciousness scattered across multiple dimensions while his physical form began to phase in and out of normal space. The last thing he saw was Dr. Mills' face pressed against the observation window, his mouth moving in words that Tom could no longer hear. Then the facility collapsed, burying everything under millions of tons of rubble. The Dominion sensors registered the complete destruction of the Quantum Research Center, just as they had registered the complete destruction of every other human installation on the planet. Admiral Crix reviewed the final battle reports from his flagship's command deck. New Geneva had been successfully sterilized, just like the other 47 human colonies. His scientists confirmed that no human life signs remained anywhere on the planet's surface. The extinction protocols had been completed with perfect efficiency, but deep beneath the ruins of the quantum facility, something that had once been human stirred in the darkness, partially phased out of reality and carrying within its transformed consciousness the scattered quantum echoes of everything humanity had ever been or dreamed of becoming. The taste of ash filled Tom's mouth as consciousness slowly returned to him 3 months after the world ended. Every breath burned his lungs, and when he tried to move, his body felt like it belonged to someone else. The quantum field had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. He emerged from the ruins of the facility like a ghost rising from its grave. The surface of New Geneva stretched before him as an endless wasteland of melted glass and twisted metal. The sky was the color of dried blood, choked with particles that blocked out most of the sun's light. Nothing moved in this dead landscape except the wind carrying the ashes of 8 million human beings. Tom's first priority was survival. His transformed body seemed to require less food and water than before, but he still needed the basics to function. Using salvaged materials from the ruins, he built a shelter in the facility's sub-basement, where the quantum field generators had once stood. The space felt strangely comfortable to him now, as if the residual quantum energy was feeding some part of his altered physiology. It took him 2 weeks to repair a functional communication array from the scattered debris. When he finally managed to intercept Dominion transmissions, what he learned both horrified and intrigued him. The aliens had not simply destroyed humanity and moved on. They had established research outposts on former human worlds, studying the remnants of human civilization with the detached interest of archaeologists, examining fossils. The transmissions revealed fascinating details about his enemies. The Dominion was not a single species but a confederation of races united by a common fear. They called themselves the Preservers of Order, and their mission was to eliminate any species that showed signs of rapid technological advancement or unpredictable innovation. Humanity had represented their greatest threat in over 1,000 years. Tom discovered that his survival had not been mere luck. The quantum field generators had indeed phased him partially out of normal spacetime, just as Dr. Mills had predicted. He could now shift his molecular structure between dimensions, making him nearly invisible to most sensors. More importantly, his consciousness had been expanded and enhanced, allowing him to process information at incredible speeds and understand complex systems with just a glance. Using these new abilities, Tom began monitoring Dominion activities across the galaxy. Their research stations were studying human art, literature, music, and scientific theories with obsessive thoroughness. The aliens seemed both fascinated and disturbed by humanity's creative chaos. Their own civilization was built on rigid order and predictable advancement, concepts that human unpredictability threatened at a fundamental level. After 6 weeks of observation, Tom decided to infiltrate the nearest research station. The facility was located in what had once been the cultural district of New Geneva's capital city, now a maze of twisted sculptures that the Dominion scientists found endlessly puzzling. Tom's quantum-enhanced state allowed him to walk through their energy barriers as if they were made of mist. Inside the research station, he observed something that made his transformed blood run cold. The Dominion researchers were not just studying humanity's achievements. They were trying to understand what made humans so dangerously creative, so unpredictably innovative. One team was analyzing human brain scans, searching for the neurological patterns that produced original thought. Another group was deconstructing human music, trying to quantify the mathematical principles behind emotional expression. But it was the third team that truly disturbed him. They were studying human children's artwork, finger paintings, and crayon drawings that had somehow survived the bombardment in a school's basement. The alien scientists discussed these simple pictures with a mixture of wonder and fear, unable to comprehend how such young minds could create images that followed no logical pattern yet somehow conveyed deep meaning. Their offspring display? Creative impulses from the earliest stages of development, one researcher noted in a report that Tom intercepted. This suggests that unpredictable innovation is not learned behavior but an inherent biological trait. The implications for galactic stability are catastrophic. Tom realized that the Dominion's fear of humanity went deeper than mere technological competition. Humans represented chaos in a universe that the aliens desperately needed to control. Every human song, every piece of art, every scientific breakthrough had been an act of rebellion against the ordered universe that the Dominion was trying to preserve. Over the following weeks, Tom began his campaign of subtle sabotage. His quantum state allowed him to appear as nothing more than sensor glitches and equipment malfunctions. He corrupted research databases, introduced random errors into their analysis programs, and caused their most sophisticated instruments to produce meaningless data. The Dominion scientists blamed their failures on equipment degradation and cosmic radiation, never suspecting that the ghost of humanity was haunting their work. But Tom's greatest discovery came when he accessed the facility's central database and found references to something called the quantum storage network. The data transmission that Dr. Mills had initiated in the facility's final moments had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. Fragments of human knowledge and culture were scattered across the galaxy in hidden quantum nodes, waiting to be retrieved by someone who understood their true nature. Each node contained not just information, but compressed experiences and memories from thousands of humans. The quantum storage technology had captured more than data. It had preserved pieces of human consciousness itself, the thoughts and dreams and hopes of people who had died believing that their species was extinct forever. Tom began the slow process of locating and accessing these nodes. Each one he activated brought him closer to understanding what he had become and what he might be capable of achieving. He was no longer just the last human survivor. He was becoming something unprecedented, a bridge between the living and the dead. Carrying within his quantum-enhanced consciousness the collective wisdom of his entire species, the Dominion continued their research, oblivious to the fact that their greatest fear was already coming true. Humanity's most dangerous innovation had not been any single piece of technology or scientific breakthrough. It had been the creation of Tom Blake himself, a being who embodied everything that made humans so terrifyingly unpredictable, now amplified by quantum enhancement and driven by the focused purpose of avenging 8 billion lives. As Tom prepared to leave New Geneva for the first time since the bombardment, he paused to look back at the ruins of the quantum facility. Somewhere in that twisted metal and melted concrete lay the remains of Dr. Mills and all the other scientists who had given their lives to preserve humanity's legacy. They had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams, but in ways they could never have imagined. The last human was no longer alone. He carried within himself the voices of the dead, and those voices were beginning to whisper plans for revenge. 2 years had passed since Tom Blake began his shadow war against the Dominion, and the galaxy had started to whisper about impossible things. Research facilities suffered mysterious system failures, military outposts reported equipment that repaired itself overnight, and deep space sensors detected ships that vanished the moment they were targeted. The Dominion's perfectly ordered universe was developing cracks, and something was growing in the darkness between the stars. Tom had established 17 hidden bases across 12 different star systems, each one built with a combination of salvaged Dominion technology and his own quantum-enhanced innovations. His consciousness could now split across multiple locations simultaneously, allowing him to coordinate complex operations while maintaining perfect secrecy. To the outside observer, he appeared to be everywhere and nowhere, a ghost that haunted the infrastructure of galactic civilization. The quantum storage nodes had become his greatest asset. Each time he activated another node, Tom gained access to new fragments of human knowledge and experience. The personality engrams stored within the quantum matrices were not complete consciousness, but they contained enough memory and emotion to guide his decisions with the wisdom of 8 billion voices. When he designed new weapons, he drew on the tactical genius of human military commanders. When he infiltrated Dominion systems, he used the creativity of human artists and the logical precision of human scientists, but Tom's greatest advantage was something the Dominion could never have anticipated: human stubbornness. While other species might have accepted extinction as inevitable, humans had always possessed an irrational refusal to surrender. This trait, amplified by his quantum enhancement and focused by years of careful planning, made Tom uniquely dangerous in ways that the Alien Confederation was completely unprepared to handle. His latest target was a Dominion research complex on the former human colony of Riverside. The aliens had converted the planet into a massive archaeological site, systematically cataloging every aspect of human civilization that had once flourished there. Tom watched from orbit as teams of alien scientists carefully excavated human homes, treating children's toys and family photographs like artifacts from an ancient civilization. The sight filled him with a cold rage that burned hotter than any star. These creatures had murdered billions of innocent people and were now picking through the remnants of their lives with clinical detachment. They studied human love letters like mathematical equations and analyzed human music as if it were a form of communication between primitive animals. They understood nothing about what they had destroyed. Tom's infiltration of the research complex was almost embarrassingly easy. His quantum state allowed him to phase through solid matter, and his enhanced consciousness could process the facility's security systems faster than they could detect his presence. He moved through the sterile corridors like a living shadow, observing the alien researchers as they attempted to quantify the unquantifiable essence of human creativity. In one laboratory, a team of Dominion scientists was analyzing human poetry, trying to understand why certain combinations of words could produce emotional responses in other humans. They had reduced Shakespeare's sonnets to mathematical formulas and were attempting to create their own poetry using algorithmic principles. The results were perfectly structured and completely devoid of any meaning or beauty. In another section of the facility, researchers were studying human religious texts, searching for the logical principles that governed human belief systems. They seemed genuinely baffled by the concept of faith, unable to comprehend how intelligent beings could believe in things that could not be scientifically proven. Their analysis of human spirituality read like a medical diagnosis of a mental disorder, But it was the third research team that truly revealed the depth of Dominion ignorance. They were attempting to reverse engineer human humor by analyzing millions of jokes, trying to understand the mathematical principles that made things funny. Their computers had identified patterns in timing, word selection, and subject matter. But every joke they created using these patterns was met with blank stares from their test subjects. Tom realized that the Dominion's greatest weakness was their complete inability to understand the illogical aspects of human nature. They could analyze human technology and eventually replicate it, but they could never truly comprehend human creativity, love, humor, or the countless other traits that made humans unpredictable. This blindness made them vulnerable in ways they could never recognize. He began his sabotage with subtle modifications to their research data. Every analysis was corrupted with small errors that would compound over time, leading the researchers down false paths of understanding. Their studies of human art began producing results that suggested humans were actually a form of living mathematics, while their analysis of human literature concluded that all human stories were really instruction manuals for primitive technology. But Tom's real masterpiece was his infiltration of the facility's communication network. Over the course of several months, he gradually inserted false data into their reports to Dominion Command. The research teams began reporting that humans had been even more dangerous than originally estimated, that their creative unpredictability was spreading to other species through some form of cultural contamination. These reports had exactly the effect Tom had hoped for. The Dominion response was swift and predictable. They increased security around human research sites and began developing new protocols for containing the supposed contamination. This expansion of their operations created exactly the kind of complexity and chaos that Tom's quantum-enhanced mind could exploit. As the Dominion stretched their resources thinner, Tom struck at multiple targets simultaneously. Research facilities suffered cascading system failures, military patrols encountered equipment malfunctions that left them stranded in space, and communication networks experienced mysterious disruptions that lasted just long enough to prevent effective coordination between different Dominion forces. Each success brought Tom closer to activating additional quantum storage nodes, and each new node enhanced his capabilities exponentially. He was no longer just one enhanced human fighting an impossible war. He was becoming something unprecedented, a distributed intelligence that combined human creativity with quantum processing power. Guided by the collective wisdom of his extinct species, the Dominion's response to these mysterious failures was entirely predictable. They assumed that some previously unknown species was responsible for the attacks, since they had confirmed that all humans were extinct. Their investigation efforts focused on identifying this new threat, never considering that their perfect genocide might have been imperfect in the most dangerous possible way. Admiral Crix, the architect of humanity's extinction, reviewed the latest reports with growing frustration. His perfectly ordered campaign was being disrupted by what his analysts described as impossible coincidences and equipment failures. The probability calculations suggested that these events could not be random, but no intelligence indicated the presence of a coordinating force. Meanwhile, Tom watched from the shadows as the Dominion forces grew increasingly paranoid and disorganized. Their rigid command structure, which had been so effective against conventional opponents, was completely unprepared to deal with an enemy that could strike anywhere and disappear without a trace. They were fighting a war against a ghost, and they didn't even realize it. As Tom prepared for the next phase of his campaign, he felt the quantum echoes of human voices whispering in his consciousness. The dead were not truly gone as long as he carried their memories within his enhanced mind. Every act of sabotage was their vengeance. Every small victory was their defiance of the extinction that was supposed to have silenced them forever. The Dominion had made a critical error in their genocide calculations. They had assumed that eliminating all human bodies would eliminate the human threat. But they had failed to understand that humanity's greatest strength had never been physical. It had always been the ideas, dreams, and stubborn refusal to surrender that lived in human minds. And those qualities, enhanced by quantum technology and focused by years of careful planning, were about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The first Dominion star system went completely dark on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Crix received the reports with the kind of cold dread that came from watching the impossible happen in real time. An entire military fleet, 3 research stations, and 4 colonial outposts had simply vanished from all sensors simultaneously. No distress calls, no evidence of battle, no debris fields. They were simply gone. Tom Blake watched the chaos unfold from the bridge of a ship that should not have existed. The vessel was built from technologies that combined human creativity with quantum principles and Dominion engineering, creating something that transcended the limitations of any single species. Its hull was composed of programmable matter that could shift between solid metal and quantum mist, while its engines drew power directly from the zero point. Energy fluctuations of space itself, but the ship was only the beginning. Across 17 different star systems, automated factories that Tom had seeded years earlier were coming online in a cascade of impossible productivity. Each facility was guided by quantum storage nodes containing the compressed experiences of thousands of human engineers, scientists, and inventors. The knowledge of his entire species was being transformed into physical reality at a rate that defied every known principle of industrial production. Tom's consciousness existed simultaneously across hundreds of different locations. His quantum-enhanced awareness could process the construction of massive shipyards while analyzing Dominion fleet movements while designing new weapon systems all at the same time. He had become something beyond human, a distributed intelligence that operated according to principles that the Dominion could not even begin to comprehend. The quantum storage network had revealed its true potential when Tom finally understood how to properly interface with it. Each node contained not just information but the actual thought patterns and creative processes of human minds. When he accessed these patterns through his quantum-enhanced consciousness, it was like having conversations with the ghosts of his species. The dead engineers could suggest improvements to his designs, while deceased artists helped him create weapon systems that were as beautiful as they were deadly. Admiral Crix's fleet arrived at the former location of Outpost Delta 7 defined, something that made his tactical officers question their own sensors. Where the Dominion research station had once orbited a barren moon, there was now a massive construction facility that stretched across millions of cubic kilometers of space. Geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly twisted through dimensions that should not have existed, while streams of exotic matter flowed along pathways that defied every known law of physics. The construction facility was building ships at a rate that was mathematically impossible. New vessels emerged from the facility's exotic matter forges every few minutes, each one unique in design but sharing certain characteristics that made Crix's military analysts extremely nervous. The ships moved through space in ways that suggested they were not entirely constrained by normal physical laws, and their weapon signatures indicated energy outputs that should have required entire star systems to power. But what truly terrified the Dominion commander was the realization that the ships were not being built according to any recognizable design philosophy. Each vessel seemed to embody a different approach to solving the same basic problems of space combat, as if dozens of different engineering teams were working simultaneously on the same project. The variety and creativity displayed in the ship designs was exactly the kind of unpredictable innovation that the Dominion had tried to eliminate from the galaxy. Tom's first direct confrontation with Dominion forces came when Admiral Crix ordered a squadron of heavy cruisers to attack the construction facility. The human-designed ships that emerged to meet them moved through space like living things, their programmable hulls shifting and flowing to adapt to different tactical situations. When the Dominion weapons fired, the human ships simply phased partially out of normal space, allowing the energy beams to pass harmlessly through their quantum-shifted hulls. The battle was over in less than 10 minutes. The Dominion cruisers were not destroyed but rather absorbed, their crew members finding themselves transported to holding cells. while their ships were deconstructed and rebuilt according to human design principles. Tom had no interest in simple destruction. He wanted the Dominion to understand exactly what they were facing before he finished what they had started. Admiral Crix found himself face to face with his enemy for the first time when Tom materialized on the bridge of the Dominion. Flagship, the human's appearance was disturbing in ways that the alien commander could not quite articulate. Tom looked human enough, but there was something about the way light bent around him, the way his presence seemed to extend beyond the boundaries of his physical form, that suggested he existed in more dimensions than the normal three. "I am what remains of the species you tried to extinct," Tom said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to come from multiple sources simultaneously. "I am the ghost of 8 billion human beings, and I have come to collect what you owe." Crix tried to maintain his composure, but the sight of a supposedly extinct human standing on his bridge was shaking his fundamental understanding of reality. "You are one individual. Even with your impossible technologies, you cannot stand against the combined might of the Dominion Confederation." Tom smiled, and for a moment Crix could see the quantum echoes of thousands of other human faces superimposed over his features. "You still don't understand what you destroyed, do you? Humans were never just individuals. We were a collective. Consciousness connected by culture, language, shared dreams, and common hopes. You killed our bodies, but our minds live on in ways you cannot imagine." The holographic displays around the bridge began showing tactical data that should have been impossible for any external party to access. Tom was not just standing on the bridge. He was interfacing directly with the ship's computer systems, demonstrating a level of technological integration that the Dominion had never achieved. Every screen showed the same terrifying reality, human-designed. Ships were appearing throughout Dominion space at an exponential rate. Each ship contains the consciousness patterns of dozens of human engineers and tactical experts, Tom explained, as he gestured toward the displays. Every weapon system embodies the creative genius of human inventors. Every strategic decision is guided by the combined wisdom of human military commanders. You are not fighting one surviving human. You are fighting the entire species. Admiral Crix realized that the Dominion's worst fears had been realized in the most horrible way possible. They had not simply failed to extinct humanity. They had transformed their enemies into something far more dangerous than any biological species could ever have been. By forcing humanity to evolve beyond physical existence, they had created an enemy that was immune to every weapon they possessed, the battle for the Dominion. Home system began 3 weeks later when Tom's fleet emerged from quantum space in perfect formation around the aliens' most heavily defended worlds. The ships moved with a coordination that suggested they were extensions of a single consciousness, executing tactical maneuvers that required instantaneous communication across vast distances. But Tom's true weapon was not his technology or his strategic genius. It was the simple fact that he embodied everything the Dominion feared most about human unpredictability. Every battle plan he created was guided by human intuition rather than mathematical probability. Every tactical decision was influenced by human emotions like anger, grief, and the desperate need for justice. He fought with the chaotic creativity that had always made humans dangerous, now amplified by quantum enhancement and focused by years of careful preparation. As Dominion fleets burned in the darkness between the stars, Admiral Crix finally understood the magnitude of his failure. The extinction protocols had been designed to eliminate species that showed dangerous levels of innovation and unpredictability. Instead, they had created the most dangerous and unpredictable enemy the galaxy had ever seen, a human being with nothing left to lose and the power of an entire species at his disposal. The last human had become something unprecedented in galactic history, and he was just getting started. The Dominion homeworld burned with fires that could be seen from 3 star systems away, but Tom Blake felt no satisfaction as he watched their capital cities crumble. Standing on the observation deck of his flagship, surrounded by the quantum echoes of 8 billion human voices, he realized that victory tasted nothing like he had expected. the dead whispered in his consciousness, and their message was not one of celebration but of sorrow for what war had forced him to become. 6 months had passed since the final battle began, and the once mighty Dominion Confederation lay in ruins. Across 17 star systems, their fleets were scattered debris floating in the void. The research stations had been converted into monuments to human creativity, and their surviving populations huddled in refugee camps on the edges of what had once been their empire. Tom had achieved total victory with an efficiency that would have impressed even Admiral Crix, if the alien commander had lived to see it. But Tom was no longer the frightened engineer who had hidden in a quantum laboratory while his world died. The years of war had transformed him into something beyond human understanding, a living repository of his species' collective knowledge and a walking embodiment of their capacity for both creation and destruction. His consciousness now spanned entire star systems. His awareness encompassed millions of simultaneous processes, and his body existed in a quantum state that allowed him to be present in dozens of locations at once. The surviving Dominion leaders knelt before him in the ruins of their grand assembly hall, their proud bearing broken by the reality of absolute defeat. Admiral Crix's replacement, a creature called Commander Vel, struggled to maintain some dignity as he prepared to surrender his civilization to the last human being in the universe. "We yield," Vel said, his translated voice carrying undertones of confusion and fear. "We acknowledge that our extinction protocols have failed, and we accept whatever judgment you choose to impose upon our species." Tom looked down at the alien commander, seeing not just the individual but the entire Dominion Confederation that had believed it could eliminate human unpredictability from the galaxy through genocide. For 3 years he had dreamed of this moment, had planned for it through every sabotage mission and every strategic victory. But now that it had arrived, he found himself thinking not of revenge but of the children's artwork he had seen in that first research station so long ago. "You never understood what you were trying to destroy," Tom said, his voice carrying the harmonic resonance of thousands of human voices speaking in perfect unison. "You studied our technology, analyzed our culture, and cataloged our achievements, but you never comprehended the one thing that made humans truly dangerous to your ordered universe." Commander Vel raised his head, genuine curiosity overriding his fear. "What did we fail to understand?" Tom gestured, and the air around them filled with holographic images drawn from the quantum storage nodes. Human families laughing together, children playing in gardens, artists creating beauty from nothing more than imagination and hope. "You feared our capacity for innovation and unpredictable advancement, but those were just symptoms of something deeper. Humans possess the ability to choose compassion over logic, mercy over efficiency, hope over despair. That was what made us truly unpredictable." The holographic images shifted, showing scenes from the war that had just ended, Tom's fleets disabling Dominion ships rather than destroying them, his forces evacuating alien civilians from combat zones, his technological innovations focused on containment rather than extermination. Even in the depths of his quantum-enhanced rage, the human capacity for mercy had guided his actions. "You committed genocide against 8 billion innocent people," Tom continued, his form flickering between solid matter and quantum energy as his emotions struggled with his enhanced nature. "Every instinct in my transformed consciousness demands that I return that favor, that I show you the same mercy you showed my species. But that would make me exactly what you feared humans were, a force of chaos that destroys everything it touches." "Commander." Vel and the other Dominion leaders exchanged glances of bewilderment. They had prepared for execution, enslavement, or some form of technological domination. They had not prepared for a philosophical discussion about the nature of mercy from the last survivor of the species they had tried to extinct. Tom walked among the kneeling aliens, his quantum-shifted form casting shadows that seemed to move independently of his physical presence. "Your confederation was built on fear. Fear of change, fear of unpredictability, fear of species that might develop beyond your ability to control them. That fear drove you to commit atrocities that ultimately created the very enemy you sought to avoid." He stopped in front of Commander, Vel, and for a moment his quantum enhancement flickered, revealing the tired face of the human engineer, who had once been content to work on abstract mathematical equations in a basement laboratory. I could destroy your entire civilization with a thought. I could scatter your species across the galaxy as refugees. Or I could simply extinct you as efficiently as you extincted humanity. But that would solve nothing. The quantum storage network pulsed around them, filled with the compressed experiences and memories of billions of human beings. Tom could feel their presence in his consciousness. Parents who had loved their children, teachers who had dedicated their lives to nurturing young minds, artists who had created beauty for its own sake, scientists who had pushed the boundaries of knowledge not for power, but for understanding. Instead, I offer you a choice, Tom said, his voice now carrying the gentle tones of every human parent who had ever comforted a frightened child. You can remain as you are, clinging to your fear of change and your need to control everything around you. I will exile you to the edge of the galaxy where you can build your ordered society in isolation. Or you can choose to evolve. Commander Vel found his voice, though it trembled with uncertainty. What do you mean by evolve? Tom gestured again, and the holographic displays showed new images, Dominion researchers working alongside human consciousness. Patterns stored in quantum matrices, alien engineers learning to embrace creative chaos in their designs, mixed crews of biological and quantum-enhanced beings, exploring the boundaries of what was possible when order and chaos learned to cooperate. The quantum storage network contains more than just human knowledge and memories, Tom explained. It contains the patterns of human consciousness itself, the very thought processes that made my species so unpredictably creative. I can share these patterns with any species willing to accept them, creating hybrid consciousness that combines the best of both our natures. The implications of his offer struck the Dominion leaders like a physical blow. Tom was not just proposing survival or even cooperation. He was offering them the chance to become something entirely new, to evolve beyond their current limitations by embracing the very chaos they had spent millennia trying to eliminate. But why? Commander Vel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why would you offer such a gift to the species that murdered your own? Tom's quantum-enhanced form stabilized, becoming fully solid for the first time in years. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 8 billion human souls, but also the gentle wisdom of a species that had always believed in second chances. Because that is what makes humans human. We have the capacity to choose hope over hatred, growth over stagnation, forgiveness over revenge. You tried to extinct that capacity from the universe, but all you succeeded in doing was concentrating it into a single individual who refuses to let it die. The debate among the Dominion leaders was fierce but brief. Some factions demanded exile, clinging to their old ways and their fear of change. But others, led by Commander Vel himself, recognized the unprecedented opportunity that Tom was offering them. They could become part of something greater than either species could achieve alone, a hybrid civilization that combined Dominion order with human creativity. The transformation process began immediately for those who chose evolution. Tom's quantum consciousness interfaced directly with willing Dominion minds, sharing the compressed experiences of human artists, scientists, engineers, and philosophers. The aliens who underwent the process emerged changed in fundamental ways, their rigid thought patterns softened by human intuition, their fear of chaos replaced by excitement about unlimited possibilities. But Tom's greatest creation was not the hybrid consciousness or the technological marvels that resulted from the merger of human and Dominion knowledge. It was the establishment of a new kind of civilization, one built on the principle that diversity of thought and unpredictable innovation were not threats to be eliminated but treasures to be protected and nurtured. As the years passed, Tom found himself becoming less central to the civilization he had created. The hybrid consciousness patterns spread naturally through willing populations, creating communities that thought and dreamed in ways that neither human nor Dominion minds could have achieved alone. New species were contacted and invited to join the growing confederation, each one contributing their own unique perspectives to the collective pool of knowledge and creativity. The quantum storage network evolved as well, becoming not just a repository of human memory but a living library of consciousness patterns from dozens of different species. Future generations would be able to interface with the stored minds of brilliant individuals from across the galaxy, learning from their experiences and building upon their achievements in ways that transcended the limitations of any single biological form. Tom established memorials on the sites of former human colonies, quantum monuments that preserved not just the memory of what had been lost, but the lessons that could be learned from both humanity's achievements and their destruction. These sites became pilgrimage destinations for beings from across the galaxy, places where the hybrid consciousness could contemplate the price of fear and the value of forgiveness. But perhaps Tom's most important legacy was the simple fact that he had chosen mercy when revenge would have been easier. His decision to offer evolution rather than extinction had broken the cycle of fear that had driven galactic politics for millennia. Other species that had lived in terror of the Dominion's extinction protocols now saw that even the most dangerous threats could be transformed through understanding and compassion. Standing alone on the observation deck of his flagship, as it orbited the memorial world that had once been New Geneva, Tom felt the quantum echoes of his species settling into peaceful silence for the first time in years. The voices of the dead no longer whispered demands for vengeance. Instead, they sang quiet songs of satisfaction, knowing that their sacrifice had ultimately led to something beautiful and unprecedented. Tom Blake was no longer the last human being in the universe. He had become something else entirely, the gardener of a new kind of civilization that grew from the ashes of the old and flourished according to principles that his species had died to protect. The Dominion had thought they had won by killing every human body, but they had fundamentally misunderstood what humanity truly represented. Humanity had never been about individual survival or technological superiority. It had always been about the ideas and values and dreams that could survive even total physical extinction and transform the galaxy itself. The enemy had fought. They had won when the last human city burned, but they had been wrong in the most profound way possible. One human had survived, and that had been enough to change everything.